Since time and his predestinated end abridged the circuit of his hopeful days, while both his youth and virtue did intend the good endeavors of deserving praise, what memorable monument can last, whereon to build his never-blemished name, but his own worth, wherein his life was graced, sith as that he ever maintained the same. Oblivion, in the darkest day to come, when sin shall tread on merit in the dust, cannot raise out the lamentable tomb of his short-lived deserts. But still they must, even in the hearts and memories of men, claim fit respect, that they, in every limb, remembering what he was, with comfort then, may pattern out one truly good by him. For he was truly good, if honest care of harmless conversation may commend a life free from such stains as follies are, ill recompensed only in his end. Nor can the tongue of him who loved him least, if there can be minority of love to one superlative above the rest of many men in steady faith, reprove his constant temper in the equal weight of thankfulness and kindness. Truth doth leave sufficient proof he was in every right as kind to give, as thankful to receive. The curious eye of a quick-brained survey could scantly find a mote amidst the sun of his too shortened days, or make a prey of any faulty errors he had done. Not that he was above the spleenful sense and spite of malice, but for that he had warrant enough in his own innocence against the sting of some in nature bad. Yet who is he so absolutely blessed that lives encompassed in a mortal frame, sometime in reputation not oppressed, by some in nothing famous, but defame? Such in the bypath and the ridgeway lurk that leads to ruin, in a smooth pretense of what they do to be a special work of singleness not tending to offense, whose very virtues are not to detract, whilst hope remains of gain, base fee of slaves, despising chiefly men in fortunes racked. But death to such gives unremembered graves. Now therein lived he happy, if to be free from detraction happiness it be. His younger years gave comfortable hope to hope for comfort in his riper youth, which, harvest-like, did yield again the crop of education bettered in his truth. Those noble twins of heaven-infused races, learning and wit, refined in their kind, did jointly both, in their peculiar graces, enrich the curious temple of his mind. Indeed, a temple, in whose precious white sat reason by religion overswayed, teaching his other senses with delight how piety and zeal should be obeyed. Not fruitlessly in prodigal expense, wasting his best of time, but so content with reason's golden mean to make defense against the assault of youth's encouragement, as not the tide of this surrounding age, when now his father's death had freed his will, could make him subject to the drunken rage of such whose only glory is their ill. He, from the happy knowledge of the wise, draws virtue to reprove secured fools, and shuns the glad slights of ensnaring vice, to spend his spring of days in sacred schools. Here gave he diet to the sick desires that day by day assault the weaker man, and with fit moderation still retires from what doth batter virtue now and then. But that I not intend in full discourse to progress out his life. I could display a good man in each part exact, and force the common voice to warrant what I say. For if his fate and heaven had decreed that full of days he might have lived to see the grave in peace, the times that should succeed had been best speaking witnesses with me, whose conversation so untouched did move respect most in itself, as who would scan his honesty and worth, by them might prove he was a kind, true, perfect gentleman, not in the outside of disgraceful folly, courting opinion with unfit disguise, affecting fashions, nor addicted wholly to unbeseeming blushless vanities, but suiting his habit and desire, as that his virtue was his best attire. Not in the waste of many idle words cared he to be heard talk, nor in the float of fond conceit, such as this age affords, by vain discourse upon himself to dote. For his becoming silence gave such grace to his judicious parts, as what he spake seemed rather answers which the wise embrace, than busy questions such as talkers make. And though his qualities might well deserve just commendation, yet his furnished mind such harmony of goodness did preserve, as nature never built in better kind, knowing the best, and therefore not presuming in knowing, but for that it was the best, ever within himself free choice resuming of true perfection in a perfect breast, so that his mind and body made an inn, the one to lodge the other, both like framed for fair conditions, guests that soonest win applause, in generality well framed, if trim behavior, gestures mild, discreet endeavors, modest speech, beseeming mirth, true friendship, active grace, persuasion sweet, delightful love innated from his birth, acquaintance unfamiliar, carriage just, offenceless resolution, wished sobriety, clean-tempered moderation, steady trust, unburthened conscience, unfeigned piety, if these, or all of these, knit fast in one, cannot merit praise, then justly may we say, not any from this frailer stage is gone, whose name is like to live a longer day. Though not in eminent courts, or places great for popular concourse, yet in that soil where he enjoyed his birth, life, death, and seat, which now sits mourning his untimely spoil. And as much glory is it to be good for private persons in their private home, as those descended from illustrious blood in public view of greatness, whence they come. Though I, rewarded with some sadder taste of knowing shame, by feeling it, have proved my country's thankless misconstruction, cast upon my name and credit, both unloved, by some whose fortunes, sunk into the wane of plenty and desert, have strove to win justice by wrong, and sifted to embane my reputation with a witless sin. Yet time, the father of unblushing truth, may one day lay ope malice which hath crossed it, and right the hopes of my endangered youth, purchasing credit in the place I lost it. Even in which place the subject of the verse, unhappy matter of a mourning style, which now that subject's merits doth rehearse, had education and new being, while by fair demeanour he had won repute amongst the all of all that lived there, for that his actions did so wholly suit with worthiness, still memorable here. The many hours till the day of doom will not consume his life and hapless end, for should he lie obscured without a tomb, time would to time his honesty commend, whiles parents to their children will make known, and they to their posterity impart, how such a man was sadly overthrown by a hand guided by a cruel heart, whereof as many as shall hear that sadness will blame the one's hard fate, the other's madness. While such as do recount that tale of woe, told by remembrance of the wisest heads, will in the end conclude the matter so, as they will all go weeping to their beds. For when the world lies wintered in the storms of fearful consummation, and lays down the unsteady change of his fantastic forms, expecting to be overthrown, when the proud height of much affected sin shall ripen to a head, and in that pride end in the miseries it did begin, and fall amidst the glory of his tide. Then, in a book where every work is writ, shall this man's actions be revealed, to show the gainful fruit of well-employed wit, which paid to heaven the debt that it did owe. Here shall be reckoned up the constant faith, never untrue, where once he love professed, which is a miracle in men, one saith, long sought, though rarely found. And he is best who can make friendship in those times of change, admired more for being firm than strange. When those weak houses of our brittle flesh shall ruined be by death, our grace and strength, youth, memory, and shape that made us fresh, cast down and utterly decayed at length, when all shall turn to dust from whence we came, and we low-levelled in a narrow grave, what can we leave behind us but a name, which, by a life well led, may honor have? Such honor, O thou youth untimely lost, thou didst deserve, and hast, for though thy soul hath took her flight to a diviner coast, yet here on earth thy fame lives ever whole. In every heart sealed up, in every tongue fit matter to discourse, no day prevented that pities not thy sad and sudden wrong, of all alike beloved and lamented. And I here, to thy memorable worth, in this last act of friendship, sacrifice my love to thee, which I could not set forth in any other habit of disguise. Although I could not learn, whiles yet thou wert, to speak the language of a servile breath, my truth stole from my tongue into my heart, which shall not thence be sundered, but in death. And I confess my love was too remiss, that I had not made thee know how much I prized thee, but that mine error was, and yet it is, to think love best in silence. For I sized thee by what I would have been, not only ready in telling I was thine, but being so, by some effect to show it. He is steady who seems less than he is in open show. Here then I offer up to memory the value of my talent, precious man, whereby if thou live to posterity, though it be not as I would, 'tis as I can. In minds from whence endeavor doth proceed, a ready will is taken for the deed. Yet ere I take my last farewell from thee, fair mark of sorrow, let me frame some ampler work of thank, wherein to tell what more thou didst deserve than in thy name, and free thee from the scandal of such senses as in the rancor of unhappy spleen measure thy course of life, with false pretenses, comparing by thy death what thou hast been. So in his mischiefs is the world accursed. It picks out matter to inform the worst. The willful blindness that hoodwinks the eyes of men enwrapped in an earthly veil makes them most ignorantly exercise and yield to humor when it doth assail, whereby the candle and the body's light darkens the inward eyesight of the mind, presuming still it sees, even in the night, of that same ignorance which makes them blind. Hence constir they with corrupt commentaries, proceeding from a nature as corrupt, the text of malice, which so often varies as 'tis by seeming reason underpropped. Oh, whither tends the lamentable spite of this world's teenful apprehension, which understands all things amiss, whose light shines not amidst the dark of their dissension. True 'tis, this man, whiles yet he was a man, soothed not the current of besotted fashion, nor could digest, as some loose mimics can, an empty sound of overweening passion, so much to be made servant to the base and sensual aptness of disunioned vices, to purchase commendation by disgrace, whereto the world and heat of sin entices. But in a safer contemplation, secure in what he knew, he ever chose the ready way to commendation, by shunning all invitement strange of those whose illness is the necessary praise must wait upon their actions, only rare in being rare in shame, which strives to raise their name by doing what they do not care, as if the free commission of their ill were even as boundless as their prompt desires, only like lords, like subjects to their will, which their fond dotage evermore admires. He was not so, but in a serious awe, ruling the little ordered commonwealth of his own self, with honor to the law that gave peace to his bread, bread to his health, whichever he maintained in sweet content and pleasurable rest, wherein he joyed a monarchy of comfort's government, never until his last to be destroyed. For in the vineyard of heaven-favored learning, where he was double honored in degree, his observation and discreet discerning had taught him in both fortunes to be free, whence now retired home. To a home indeed, the home of his condition and estate, he well provided 'gainst the hand of need, whence young men sometime grow unfortunate. His disposition, by the bonds of unity, so fastened to his reason that it strove, with understanding's grave immunity, to purchase from all hearts a steady love, wherein not any one thing comprehends proportionable note of what he was, than that he was so constant to his friends, as he would no occasion overpass which might make known his unaffected care, in all respects of trial, to unlock his bosom and his store, which did declare that Christ was his, and he was friendship's rock. A rock of friendship figured in his name, foreshowing what he was, and what should be. Most true presage, and he discharged the same in every act of perfect amity. Though in the complemental phrase of words, he never was addicted to the vein of boast, such as the common breath affords. He was in use most fast, in tongue most plain, nor amongst all those virtues that forever adorned his reputation will be found one greater than his faith, which did persever, where once it was protested, always sound. Hence sprung the deadly fuel that revived the rage which wrought his end. For had he been slacker in love, he had been longer lived, and not oppressed by wrath's unhappy sin. By wrath's unhappy sin, which advised gave death for free goodwill and wounds for love. Pity it was that blood had not been prized at higher rate, and reason set above most unjust choler, which untimely drew destruction on itself, and most unjust, robbed virtue of a follower so true as time can boast of, both for love and trust. So henceforth all, great glory to his blood, shall be but seconds to him, being good. The wicked end their honor with their sin in death, which only then the good begin. Lo, here a lesson by experience taught, for men whose pure simplicity hath drawn their trust to be betrayed by being caught within the snares of making truth a pawn. Whiles it, not doubting whereunto it enters, without true proof and knowledge of a friend, sincere in singleness of heart, adventures to give fit cause ere love begin to end. His unfeigned friendship, where at least was sought, him to a fatal timeless ruin brought, whereby the life that purity adorned with real merit by this sudden end is in the mouth of some in manner scorned, made questionable, for they do intend, according to the tenor of the saw, mistook, if not observed, writ long ago when men were only led by reason's law, that Such as is the end, the life proves so. Thus he, who to the universal lapse gave sweet redemption, offering up his blood to conquer death by death and loose the traps of hell, even in the triumph that it stood. He thus, for that his guiltless life was spilt by death, which was made subject to the curse, might in like manner be reproved of guilt in his pure life, for that his end was worse. But oh, far be it our unholy lips should so profane the deity above, as thereby to ordain revenging whips against the day of judgment and of love. The hand that lends us honor in our days may shorten when it please, and justly take our honor from us many sundry ways, as best becomes that wisdom did us make. The second brother, who was next begot of all that ever were begotten yet, was by a hand in vengeance rude and hot sent innocent to be in heaven set, whose fame the angels in melodious choirs still witness to the world. Then why should he, well profited in excellent desires, be more rebuked, who had like destiny? Those saints before the everlasting throne, who sit with crowns of glory on their heads, washed white in blood, from earth hence have not gone all to their joys in quiet on their beds, but tasted of the sour bitter scourge of torture and affliction ere they gained those blessings which their sufferance did urge, whereby the grace fore-promised they attained. Let then the false suggestions of the froward, building large castles in the empty air, by suppositions fond and thoughts untoward, issues of discontent and sick despair, rebound gross arguments upon their heart, that may disprove their malice, and confound uncivil loose opinions, which insert their souls into the role that doth unsound betraying policies, and show their brains, unto their shame, ridiculous, whose scope is envy, whose endeavors fruitless pains, in nothing surely prosperous but hope. And that same hope, so lame, so unprevailing, it buries self-conceit in weak opinion, which being crossed, gives matter of bewailing their vain designs, on whom want hath dominion. Such, and of such condition, may devise which way to wound with defamation's spirit, close lurking whispers, hidden forgeries, his taintless goodness, his desertful merit. But whiles the minds of men can judge sincerely upon assured knowledge, his repute and estimation shall be rumored clearly, in equal worth. Time shall to time renew it. The grave, that in his ever-empty womb forever closes up the unrespected, who when they die, die all, shall not entomb his pleading best perfections as neglected. They to his notice in succeeding years shall speak for him when he shall lie below, when nothing but his memory appears of what he was, then shall his virtues grow. His being but a private man in rank, and yet not ranked beneath a gentleman, shall not abridge the commendable thank which wise posterity shall give him then for nature and his therein happy fate. Ordained that by his quality of mind to ennoble that best part, although his state were to a lower blessedness confined. Blood, pomp, state, honor, glory, and command, without fit ornaments of disposition, are in themselves but heathenish and profaned, and much more peaceful is a mean condition, which, underneath the roof of safe content, feeds on the bread of rest, and takes delight to look upon the labors it hath spent for its own sustenance, both day and night. Whiles others, plotting which way to be great, how to augment their portion and ambition, do toil their giddy brains, and ever sweat for popular applause and power's commission. But one in honors, like a sealed dove, whose inward eyes are dimmed with dignity, does most think safety doth remain above, and seeks to be secure by mounting high, whence, when he falls, who did erewhile aspire, falls deeper down, for that he climbed higher. Now, men who in lower region live, exempt from danger of authority, have fittest times in reason's rules to thrive, not vexed with envy of priority, and those are much more noble in the mind than many that have nobleness by kind. Birth, blood, and ancestors are none of ours, nor can we make a proper challenge to them, but virtues and perfections in our powers proceed most truly from us, if we do them. Respective titles, or a gracious style, with all what men in eminence possess, are, without ornaments to praise them, vile. The beauty of the mind is nobleness, and such as have that beauty well deserve eternal characters, that after death remembrance of their worth we may preserve, so that their glory die not with their breath. Else, what else avails it in a goodly strife upon this face of earth here to contend, the good to exceed the wicked in their life, should both be obscured in their end? Until which end there is none rightly can be termed happy, since the happiness depends upon the goodness of the man, which afterwards his praises will express. Look hither then, that you enjoy the youth of your best days, and see how unexpected death can betray your jollity to ruth, when death you think is least to be respected. The person of this model, here set out, had all that youth and happy days could give him, yet could not all encompass him about against the assault of death, who, to relieve him, struck home but to the frail and mortal parts of his humanity, but could not touch his flourishing and fair, long-lived deserts. Above fate's reach, his singleness was such, so that he dies but once, but doubly lives, once in his proper self, then in his name. Predestinated time, who all deprives, could never yet deprive him of the same. And had the genius which attended on him been possibility to keep him safe against the rigor that hath overgone him, he had been to the public use a staff, leading by his example in the path which guides to doing well, wherein so few, the proneness of this age to error, hath informed rightly in the courses true. And then the loss of one, whose inclination strove to win love in general, is sad. So specially his friends, in soft compassion, do feel the greatest loss they could have had. Amongst them all, she, who those 9 of years lived fellow to his counsels and his bed, hath the most share in loss. For I, in hers, feel what distemperature this chance hath bred. The chaste embracements of conjugal love, who in a mutual harmony consent, are so impatient of a strange remove, as meager death itself seems to lament, and weep upon those cheeks which nature framed to be delightful orbs, in whom the force of lively sweetness plays, so that ashamed, death often pities his unkind divorce. Such was the separation here constrained, well worthy to be termed a rudeness rather, for in his life his love was so unfeigned, as he was both an husband and a father, the one in firm affection and the other in careful providence, which ever strove with joint assistance to grace one another with every helpful furtherance of love. But since the sum of all that can be said can be but said that he was good, which wholly includes all excellence can be displayed in praise of virtue and reproach of folly. His due deserts this sentence on him gives: he died in life, yet in his death he lives. Now runs the method of this doleful song in accents brief to thee, O thou deceased, to whom those pains do only all belong as witnesses I did not love thee least. For could my worthless brain find out but how to raise thee from the sepulchre of dust, undoubtedly thou shouldst have partage now of life with me, and heaven be counted just if to a supplicating soul it would give life anew by giving life again where life is missed, whereby discomfort should right his old griefs and former joys retain, which now with thee are leaped into thy tomb and buried in that hollow vault of woe, expecting yet a more severer doom than time's strict flinty hand will let 'em know. And now, if I have levelled mine account and reckoned up in a true measured score those perfect graces which were ever wont to wait on thee alive, I ask no more, but shall hereafter in a poor content immure those imputations I sustain, learning my days of youth so to prevent as not to be cast down by them again. Only those hopes which fate denies to grant in full possession to a captive heart, who, if it were in plenty, still would want before it may enjoy his better part, from which detained and banished in the exile of dim misfortune, has none other prop whereon to lean and rest itself the while, but the weak comfort of the hapless, hope. And hope must, in despite of fearful change, play in the strongest closet of my breast, although perhaps I ignorantly range and court opinion in my deepest unrest. But whether doth the stream of my mischance drive me beyond myself, fast friend, soon lost. Long may thy worthiness thy name advance amongst the virtuous and deserving most, who herein hast forever happy proved. In life thou liv'st, in death thou diedst beloved.